Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us. I think to be fair to everyone's time, we'll get started. And then obviously, as people trickle in, we're more than happy to include them in the discussion. So some of you know me, some of you don't know me. My name is Malvika. I'm based out of Calgary. Fun fact, Ananda Madhav is actually my older brother. So I should just get that out of the way. And he's actually based out of Toronto. So um, Ananda, I just want to do quite like just a quick roundtable of introductions, just so that way everyone's familiar with you and you're familiar with everyone. So maybe what we can do is we can do like a popcorn situation. So I'll start off. My name is Malvika, based in Calgary. I'm really excited to be here this evening and to hear some wonderful insights and insights from all of you, but also insights from Ananda himself on this wonderful topic that we have called spirituality versus religion and kind of how each of us takes that and identifies with that. I know there's a couple of questions that have come in that I'd love to ask, but it's going to be pretty open, pretty conversational. So maybe I will popcorn it to Alona. So Alona, if you can do a little bit of introduction and then we can get going.
Thank you. My name is Alona. I'm from not Winnipeg, just outside of Winnipeg, Lorette West. And I just love to communicate with devotees because it's always interesting to hear people's opinions because our love to God is something that connects us all. And it's really nice just to be, be there with each other and light up our hearts. So that's very important for me. And thank you for that opportunity. I'm
Thank you.
grateful for
Thank you.
Krishna.
Alona Bola, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Bola. I'm here in Calgary and I escaped from work to be here today. I got home 2 minutes ago.
Thanks,
I'm sort of
Bola.
looking around. Where's Bola? She's gone. See you, see you tomorrow. So I'm really happy to be here. I was here two sessions ago and it was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to this one as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And I can say that I have the pleasure of having Bola here in Calgary. So I've interacted with her and she's absolutely warm and lovely.
Oh,
We'll
I'll take it.
we'll popcorn it over to Molly. Molly, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, Hare Krishna, everybody. I'm Molly and I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I have just had a pleasure joining in the past few weeks with these discussions. It's something that I look forward to. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then Wingal.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm on my phone today. Um, I'm from Calgary, and I joined because the topics have been really interesting. Everyone's insights have been great. It's a great space and to be in. So that's why I'm here today as well.
Thank you. And then saving the best for the last, Samira, or as I call her, Sam, if you want to do a little bit of introduction.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I'm from Calgary, and Malvika told me about this class, and she was like, "Oh, it's like a great class. You should come." And I've been loving it because I came 2 sessions ago, and it was like a great class. So I'm looking forward to this one too.
Thank you. Just so everyone knows, she's probably like our youngest participant. She's, I think, 16 or 17 years old. So, and she's probably more keen and eager than me to be able to join these sessions, which is amazing. So, Ananda, do you want to introduce a little bit about yourself and then we can kind of get started?
Yeah, so Hare Krishna, everyone. Nice to see everyone here, and thank you all for tuning in from wherever you are in Canada. I'm originally from Calgary, but currently based out of Toronto. I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for about half my life now. So more than half my life. I came in Krishna consciousness when I was around 16. Um, and yeah, I have been. And I think this topic really was, very relevant to me when I joined, and still relevant to me now. So I thought that if it was relevant to me, I thought it might be relevant to someone else as well. And so, yeah, that's what we're here. I'm going to try and take some questions. And if you have any other questions that you'd like to just put in the chat or directly send over to me, or even just raise your hand and ask, that's also an option. Please feel free to interrupt us at any time to have your questions answered.
Okay, awesome. So to kick off our discussion, one of the questions that I have right off my head is a lot of people, even myself, say that, we're spiritual, but we're not necessarily quote unquote religious. So how do you distinguish between spirituality and religion, and what do those terms mean to you specifically?
Yeah, so I'm going to take the analogy of a doctor or a medical student, if you bear with me. So let's say that there's this person who is really passionate about medicine, really passionate about healthcare, passionate about helping patients, and has read all sorts of studies online, and done their research using open evidence, ChatGPT, open AI, and just really like absorbed the knowledge. However, they haven't gone to medical school. Now, if you can raise your hand or you can react, how many of you would trust to go to such a person to get treated like in the formal capacity of being a doctor? Okay, so I didn't see any hands raised or any questions, right? Now, on the flip side, let's say that there is another person. They went to medical school. They were an average student. They got residency. They don't have any legal cases against them. They're practicing. But, and yeah, they're practicing. They're your average doctor. Let's say you have a cold. Would you trust this person's diagnosis and prescription? You would. But, so Bola is shaking her, Bola is nodding, but they were an average medical student and you would still trust their diagnosis? Yes or no? You would. Okay. So Alona is like somewhere in the middle. I might, but let's say it's a cold and you just need to get some medicine or something and they're the one available. Would you go to them? Considering the great position that Canadian healthcare is in, let's say that you have a minor cold. I think I'll just cut the just for the sake of it, I'll say that most of us will still consider them. We might take we'll at least go and see what they have to say, and we'll at least take their opinion, their diagnosis into consideration. This is the difference between spirituality and religion. Religion, if you think about it, is an institution that allows for the practices of spirituality to happen, to continue. It provides an infrastructure, as you will, right? Just like a medical school provides an infrastructure for the practice of medicine to be learned, to be understood, to be analyzed, and to be practiced in a controlled setting. Similarly, so religion is in one sense, when you think of religion, let's just call it for what it is. We're thinking about institutionalized religion, right? Now, medical school, one may say, would like schooling in general, it's not perfect by any sense, right? The fees are quite high. Sometimes you'll get stuck with a prof that isn't so great. You'll give your feedback, but they're not the greatest prof. Um, Again, the residencies or rotations that you may get signed up to may not be really what you're interested in, but that's the one that you get and you take that and you learn from it. So med school is not, in one sense, or any school for that matter, is not perfect, right? It all has its shortcomings. Yet, when a person goes to medical school, gets into medical school, spends the time learning and really going through it, coming out at the other end, becoming a fully fledged physician, we still trust their diagnosis, we'll still go to them. So medical school provides that infrastructure by which they can learn medicine and really perfect or try to perfect their art. Similarly, religion, the institutionalized religion, as an institution, it may not be fully perfect, but it still allows you to actually become, rooted in your spiritual practice. So spiritual practice is like so that's the religion part. Now let me talk about the spirituality part. Spirituality, going back to our analogy, is like your study. So a med student or any student for that matter, they go to the university or to the college or school, and through the school, despite their imperfections, the school provides them with, teachers. The school provides them with textbooks. The school provides to so they provide them with teachers and textbooks to help them understand or build their understanding of medicine. Then they provide them with tests to help them see how much they have understood and what areas of weakness they need to sort of fix. And then it provides them with accreditation so that they can go out in the world and they can say that, hey, look at, I have a degree, I've been through the process. But the studying does not have, like, you just by going to class and making sure you get the test and talking to the prof does not necessarily mean you're going to pass. Besides all of this, you still need to go home and study and actually work on yourself to really make sure you're putting in your work so that the resources that the school gives, you're actually utilizing them and maximizing them through personal study. Same thing with spirituality. Spirituality is your personal study in one sense when we compare it to religion. The institution will give you the teachers, they will give you the books, they will give you the mentors, they will give you the physical infrastructure so that you have a space to actually go and practice. But the practice of spirituality itself, if you think about it, it's actually quite personal. Just because someone is showing up to the temple or showing up to a place of worship may not necessarily mean they're spiritual. At least that was not for me when I joined Krishna consciousness. I was going to the temple, but it didn't necessarily mean I was spiritual or I was practicing spirituality. It was only when I took those practices and really started to actually put in the time, put in the effort to build a personal practice that I could call myself that, yes, I am trying to practice spirituality or I'm practicing spirituality. So that's how I would see it. Spirituality in one sense is your personal practice. Religion, in one sense, is the institution that allows for that personal practice to flourish. It provides the resources. You can be fully spiritual, right? But just like as how you wouldn't trust any physician who's just gone and studied, read all the papers and everything, but hasn't really gone to informal school, you won't trust such a doctor. Similarly, spirituality on its own, without any rooting in formal religious institution, we won't really trust such a person because same sort of concept. Who knows what their personal spiritual practice looks like? But religion on its own without spirituality is also not perfect because if you just let's go with the same analogy, if you just have the school, but the students that are going there are not really putting any personal practice, they're not going to get credited at towards the end, right? It's just by going to school does not automatically get you the degree. You actually have to study. So same thing, when you go to when you go to religion, you actually have to put in the work to build your spiritual practice. And when you have both religion and spirituality hand in hand, now you can actually get a spiritual movement going that will actually change the world in a very substantial way. So I hope that compares and contrasts and sort of sets the context for what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I guess like I just had a follow up to the question, which I'm sure some of us are probably thinking about is you mentioned a lot about the infrastructure portion of religion, and you kind of alluded to it, but I'm wondering if we can expand on it. Can spirituality exist without that infrastructure? And I know you kind of said that one cannot coexist without the other, but then what do you do when maybe personally you haven't had the best experience with that particular infrastructure of religion, right? But you still
Yeah.
want to be able to practice spiritual teachings, or you still want to be able to um, like practice those spiritual teachings. Then how do you kind of go through that?
Yeah. So can you be spiritual without conforming to any religion or any institution, right? Um, yes and no. So the reason why I say yes and no is because um, Yeah, or I think, yeah, so I'll say yes and no, and I'll just revert back to my other answer. You can be spiritual, and for your own personal spiritual practice, that may work. But at the end of the day, let's take a moment and just reflect on our own individual spiritual journey. Did we come across this path because somebody somewhere, acting on their own, just presented us and said, here you go, here's the teachings. I hope it inspires you. Or did you actually, and I'll speak about my experience. So I was really wary of spiritual and religious institutions when I started my spiritual journey. And when I came across Krishna consciousness, the first thing I did was I actually wanted to look at the institution that was backing this up. Because if the institution itself is not following or does not have processes in place to ensure that they're following the teachings of spirituality, then any person who claims to follow that path, I won't really agree, because they're not coming from, you can say, an organization, right? In order for a spiritual movement, in order for a spiritual movement to grow, you need an institution. And this is sounding more about like an operational sort of thing, but I'll actually give you an example. There is, in the ancient text, there's one quite ancient text written about 500 years ago. It talks about a personality called Chaitanya. Chaitanya, it is said, was God himself, was Krishna himself, who had come to sort of set an example on how a devotee or a spiritualist should, like, what their life should look like. What some principles, and what are the ways they should carry themselves. And he lived in a temple. He lived in a temple, and that temple actually, according to that temple is still there today. You can go visit it. According to the institution's rules for that specific temple, anyone born outside of the, the Vedic or the Hindu faith could not enter the temple, except that Chaitanya, this personality, one of his greatest, you can say, associates, one of his most dear friends or his confidants, was actually born in the Muslim faith. And as such, this person could not enter the temple. So a huge problem if you think about it for this personality, Chaitanya. He wants to still follow the institution, but the institution itself is, in one sense, you can say, is acting unfairly towards his very, very dear associate, his confidant, right? And so what does Chaitanya do? Chaitanya actually still continues to stay in the temple, but every day he actually goes to the house of his friend, of his confidant, and he actually spends time with him. He actually, you can say, like, takes flowers and offerings from the temple to his house. And I found, when I heard the story, I was like, that is so instructive for us, because of course we will have challenges with how institutions are being run. But and I hear, if you're in corporate world, you always hear this lingo, let's be solutions oriented. And Chaitanya actually emphasized this fact that we can have problems with the institution, but we can still abide by it and try to find solutions, so that we can still take the message, the mood of the spiritual movement, the essence of the spiritual movement, out to others. And in this way, I found it was so incredibly instructive, because by his personal example, remember, this is Krishna, this is God himself. And what does God think about institutionalized religion? He doesn't say that they're perfect. He says there might be problems, but we can still work around them, and we can still work to set a better example for everyone else around us. We often limit, and you can say we often underscore ourselves by saying that, we often underscore ourselves by thinking that, one person can't make a huge change, but if we can actually set an example, for everyone else, we can actually change the institution by just setting an example for ourselves. So in a nutshell, I would say that your question was that, can you be spiritual even when the religion is not there? Yes, you can. And actually, you can even be solution oriented. So even though you have problem with the institution, you can set an example so that everyone can appreciate the institution through through the principles that you embody.
Thank you. That's wonderful. At this point, I think it would be nice to hear from some of you. Again, it can kind of build on, maybe you can reflect back anything that you've heard, or you can kind of build on what we've discussed so far. If you have a question that's kind of popped in your head, or want to speak about something that's a bit more, in your realm, then we can. Oh, Samira has her hand raised. Samira, go ahead.
I just had a question from Malvika's question. Like you said, you can be spiritual without religion, but like if there's no religion, wouldn't it be like sentimentalism?
Exactly. And so that's why I said you can be, not, it's a possibility, right? So if you understand, like it's not that definitely, like it's a definite answer, you will be spiritual without religion. So if you have the mature understanding, then that is possible. But if you don't, and I myself included, like I don't believe I have a very mature understanding of spiritual principles, it will be sentimentalism. It will just be, and Samara, I would also like to then actually push you a little bit. Do you believe that sentimentalism doesn't exist for people who are who are in part of the institution, who are part of the religion?
Um, because I was like kind of like connecting this to like what like Srila Prabhupada said. Like, you know how he said like, oh, like religion without philosophy is like sentimentalism, and like philosophy without religion is mental speculation. So I was just like, wouldn't like if there's no religion, wouldn't that be sentimentalism too?
Yeah, it might as well be, right? Because religion sets, as I said, the infrastructure. With infrastructure comes the rules and the regulations and everything else. And if we're just being sentimentalists about it, then sentimentalism is based on emotion. Emotions change faster. What's something that changes super fast? It changes faster than Instagram's algorithm, right? So if we feel good today, we'll be like, yeah, we're a spiritualist, and if we don't feel good tomorrow, we may not be. So yeah, a huge part of it is sentimentalism, yes. But one thing, and this is what I was hinting at, is that even amongst religion, you can still be a part of the religious institution and still, I mean, it's not as common, but still rear off to that feeling of sentimentalism. If you're part of the institution, you're part of the religion, but still have a disregard for the rules and regulations. So sentimentalism is a huge problem. You're better guarded against it if you're part of the religion. But yeah, I hope that sort of clarifies the question that you were asking. If not, we can definitely continue on this topic.
No, it did, yeah.
Perfect. Alona, I see your hand up.
I would like to agree with you because I come from Russia family. I was born in Russia, then I grew up in Israel. So in Russia, we had no God. They taught us no God exists. Then it was Jesus. Then when I came to Israel, there was another God, the best God ever. Then Jesus was no good. They disrespected Jesus. And then I was very confused when I was growing up. I had issues understanding what God was. But I had my own belief that something is wrong with the system. And I was really, really against any religion. Like I was just against it. I hated it. I didn't go to church, synagogue. I completely hated it. But then God himself came to me one day and gave me gave me some flick in the head. And he said, you know what? In 2020, I got introduction into Vedas, right? And then when I started studying it with the masters and teachers, and I got that parampara, the introduction of an institution, I understood that best religion is the one that brings you to God, but not my God, your God, their God, my God is better. There is only one God. Because I grew up in Israel, I know how misleading our God is the best, we are the chosen ones, and I always had a problem with that. And I lost a lot of friends over that. And I always believed there is only one God, only one God. And in Krishna consciousness, we believe there is one and only, and we try to connect with him, to have a relationship with him, and to love everything he created, right? There is no bad people, good people, that everything is God, right? And best religion is the one that brings you closer to God. And that's what I believe. And what you say, it's really nice to hear, because all my life I was struggling and I had my issues with religion.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do have friends and we just don't talk about it, but I explain to them that my practice is my peace, right? Because my consciousness is my world. It's important to me that my mind will be clear, and that institution helps me to keep it clear.
Wonderful
Like you said, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
the world can make you different things, but
Yeah.
that institution helps you to keep your mind clear and emotions under control. Other religion, I couldn't find that because I was studying different
Mhm.
directions, and I was impressed what I found here, because all of my questions over the years, I got an answer for them
Oh,
right
wonderful.
here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as you were speaking, one thought that came to mind is that we talk about books. We talk about how, Alona, when you read books and you were like, no, this actually makes sense. But the books, the theory would not be there if it wasn't for the institution, right? So the institution helps in one sense catalyze our spiritual journey. It helps further along our spiritual journey when we are exposed to the books and the great thing about books is that you can test them out, right? So you can do this. You can read, let's say, the life of a saint, see what they did. And then you can say that, okay, I'm going to try and implement these practices in my life. And you can compare notes. You can say that, okay, I did it for this many years or these many months or these many days, and I saw changes here, here, here. Let me see what the books say. Okay, yeah, the books also say that when someone does X, Y, Z, they get this result. I'm getting this result. So it makes sense. And so the institution helps provide, like a university, like a college, it helps you provide sort of a manual through which you can test the hypothesis. You can experiment and test the hypothesis. And when your results after experimentation matches with the hypotheses that are written in these books that have come through as a result of these institutions, then you can start to be like, no, this institution is actually moving me towards that goal, towards the ultimate goals, towards spirituality. So that's another importance of institutions of religion, is that it helps do that. If everyone was spiritual, there was everyone no one there wasn't one account or one sort of experimentation manual, then we would never be able to verify whether this practice is taking us towards the supreme or not, because everyone will be having their own different experiences. But in an institution, you can do that check and balance, and you can see, okay, is this practice moving me towards or away? And you can compare that way. Am I making sense, or am I getting too technical now? No? Okay. Bola Sheikh. As long as Bola, thank you so much, Bola, for reciprocating with me, because that means I am actually I'm actually making sense. So thank you for validating me.
Would love to hear from some of the others. Sorry, Molly.
I would like to say something too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bola. Yes.
For me, I would say from my experience, I was born into a Muslim home.
Mhm.
And so that is my religion, so to speak, my first contact with religion. And you know, for me, over time, I've found that religion and spirituality, it's like when you compare it to an egg, you have religion as the shell, and then the white, and then the yolk is the spirituality. So for me, I was born into the Muslim home, would go to mosque, would do stuff, and there, the ritual, very essential. To get to the spirit, you got to get the body under control. You have to follow rituals and practices to refine the body, to let the light of the spirit shine, right? For you to awaken that Krishna consciousness, because that's the goal. So for me, I kept asking questions. I'm like, no, why am I seated here and I can only see my room? Why can't I see what is happening outside? Which God? Which God? Where is it? Where? I kept asking questions. And the beauty of life is that once the student is ready, the master will appear, right? Once your soul is yearning, the light of enlightenment will come in, right? And then the shell will start to peel off. And then it gets to the yolk of it. And that it gives you a new perspective on life, right? And then everything changes. Then it's no longer their God, your God, it's just the God, and we're all going back to the Godhead. So religion now becomes like signpost, pointing in the direction we are going. It's not the destination, it's just signpost pointing us to the Godhead, which is the goal. And also I find out that spirituality is not attainable without religion. They're like both sides, both things that make up the egg. If somebody comes to me and gives me the yolk, I'm not gonna take it. I'm like, excuse me, is it clean? Your hands have touched it. I begin to question everything. But if you give me with the white, with the shell, then I peel it up myself. Then I get to eat. Then I appreciate it better, right? I'm gonna ingest it better because I'm not thinking of all the things that have happened to the yolk he gave me, right? So spirituality doesn't make sense when you present it to somebody who is not ready. He has to pass through the religion, and then spirituality makes it worth it at the end of the day. And I also find that you need the institution, right, to keep it in check. It's like you going and buying a TV without the manual. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna break it in the process because you're not going through the manual that has been tested and trusted. It shows you when it's blinking, it means this. When it is not, the volume is not working, then you do this. It's like the easy job. Somebody has gone through the process. A group of people have tested and trusted it, and it's just for me now to go through that pathway, ask my questions. And also there's grace. There's grace in the presence of the past masters. There is enlightenment in their presence. There's a lot of things going on that it just skyrockets or catapults your spiritual growth. So on your own, you just become an idealist. I don't know if you're just being spiritual, you're just figuring things out. Okay, the moon is red, the sun is white. You're just concocting things, making up things in your head without any constituted authority or like a master or like a institution to guard the process. And then you see some people become rebellious in the process because they didn't have that structure. They're not following a path, which makes it makes a destination easier to get without distraction. You're more focused. So in my experience, I think both of them are very important. One leads you to the other, and then it makes you a better practitioner of the religion because, like Ananda said, then we can make sure we become like the triangle, the top of the triangle, and the religion is the base of it. As more people tend towards spirituality, right? Then we can actually make a difference. Like two of you, I'm talking about spirituality, you are talking about spirituality. One spiritual, and then the critical mass becomes bigger, more people are enlightened. I think so. I don't know if I'm saying rubbish, but
No, I really
that's the way I see it.
No, I really appreciated your analogy because it's like it's through that, like I really appreciate the egg analogy that you have to go through that process in order to reach the destination, right? It's you, and then once you, and I one other point I really appreciated, when you go through that process and you start to really become a genuine spiritualist, now you're an inspiration for everyone else who's also part of that religion, who's also part of that institution, because you've just like increased their faith that, okay, if this person went through this process, went through this institution and got here, I can too. I can too. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was incredibly insightful. I thank you so much. Thank you so much. Man, next time I'm in Calgary, we have to meet, Paula. We have to meet in person. Yeah. Molly, I don't know if you had anything to add or anyone else on the call. Palak's on the call as well.
Interesting discussion so far. Thank you. You know what? I don't think that you can, religion really, the word itself means to bind with God. So therefore, in essence, it is spirituality itself, because that's what our practice is for, is to bind with God. When it comes to religion, though, of course, we have a lot of dogmas and doctrines associated with religions, and that seems to be a blocking point for many people. And those doctrines and dogmas, no matter how many times you practice them over and over again, they're not going to have a connection that you have when you have your own spiritual practice. So I think that, in essence, that's a lot of issues that a lot of people have with different religions.
Yeah, to that point, I would say that, because when I asked this question, I remember I asked this question to a monk in New York. And what he said, he gave the analogy of, and I'll use another. So if you haven't guessed, I'm in healthcare. This is why all these healthcare analogies are coming to mind. But when you're prepping for, like when a physician is prepping for a surgery, there's so many procedures that they have to do, like so many, just to make sure that they're fully, like they don't introduce any infection when they're performing the surgery, right? And a lot of those they're very doctrinated, very procedural almost. And sometimes you're like, why do I have to put on 3 gowns or wash my hands with soap and then put, alcohol, and then like rinse them with alcohol and then put on gloves and then put on another gloves and all this thing. And so what he explained is that when we do these rituals, the reason why they act as blockers to really, as you said, to really enable us to bind with God, is because the spirit that is behind these rituals is often forgotten and put aside. But if we can somehow bring that spirit back to the ritual, then spirit plus ritual equals spiritual, right? And so when we can bring that spirit back to these rituals, they actually become catalysts in our spiritual growth, in our connection to the divine. And so that is that. And when I started to look at, of course, even in my practice, when I start to look at these rituals with that sort of mindset, that what is the essence, what is the spirit behind it, I mean, I'll just speak for myself. It was an incredible, like, internal revolution with the way I started to see these practices and these doctrines. So that has been my experience behind it. I don't know if anyone else on the call wants to share. I see.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention one more thing. And also, we live in a wonderful time. I feel that, let's say that we were back here in Winnipeg 100 years ago, access to other spiritual books were not available. So this is a fantastic time that we're living in. We have all different religions lead to God. I like to look at it as God is on top of the mountain. There's many paths leading up that mountain. So it is your choice what path you want to make to that God.
Yeah, I mean, there is, just if we were to consider, let's say, from going from Toronto to Winnipeg, I can go by car, I can go by rail, I can go by air, and even through the car, I can go through so many different routes. Through air, I can, go so many different routes. So if just getting from one place to another in the same country has so many paths, then what to speak of a spiritual path, right? Yeah, that also, but I should also mention that the destination should be in mind. Like I can't just get on the road and start driving because might end up in the middle of nowhere, right? Yeah. But yeah, sounds good. Palak or Rikin, did you have anything to add?
Not specifically to add, but just maybe I can share a reflection. I appreciated what you were saying because, and also the person that spoke before me. I think you said Molly, but the name here says Kyle. In any case, I've just personally why this topic is interesting is because I think I've had almost disdain for organized religion and struggled with it. And it feels like, I like this concept of spirituality, however elusive it is and loose it is. And, at some point I've realized that, like, I can only go to so many yoga classes and hear different things and kind of, just not make sense of all of it and not have it resonate. So like the mind likes structure, but at the same time have a fairly glass half full outlook, because you expect so much. Oh, faith, religion, like all these things have to be bigger than us. And yet there's people at the helm, and that, invariably I feel let down by. Excuse me. We have a young one, so he's singing in the back. So, did you have any thoughts around just how do you overcome those blockages? How do you cultivate healthy respect, and not a healthy respect like, oh, that's great for them. It's more just like a genuine, hey, this might, like, truly this enlivens my spirituality. I don't even know if the question was clear, but because I don't know if it's entirely clear in my head, but any reflections you have, I'll take, or others too. You're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, I think your question, just to summarize from what I was hearing, is how do you continue to stay inspired in your spirituality, knowing that the religion has craters, right? Has spots that may not necessarily resonate with you. The way I see it is, well, that's a project that's another project that we can, potentially look into. On a serious, like genuinely on a serious note, I feel that yes, the institution does have, like any institution has problems. But if an institution is helping me catalyze my spiritual growth, then that institution also has positives, right? Of course, as you said, it's glass half full. But and we and this is what really did it for me, is that at work, I am, even if any member of my leadership, my boss, anyone asks me, what issues are you facing? I automatically go into this sort of framework where I voice the issue, but I end my answer with a potential solution. Like, I'm so solutions oriented at work because I know my job depends on it. And it's just become a second nature where I'm always solutions oriented at work. Why can't I do that when it comes to religion? Why can't I just be solution oriented in life? And imagine the transformation just think about it. Let's just do a reflection, right? In the past 24 hours, just think about all the things that you've complained, right? Just from the moment you woke up. I mean, my first complaint, I went to downtown, and if you've taken the train to downtown Toronto during rush hour, sardines have it easy compared to the train of how packed it is, right? Immediately, I was like, man, this train is so packed, and this and that, and whatever. And then, when I got to the office, again, the elevators, I was waiting. I was like, oh, for God's sake, like, let's go. And then once I got into my chair, I had my meeting with my manager, and the first question she asked is, okay, so tell me, what are some issues? And I immediately went into this. Yeah, so we're experiencing this and this, but what I recommend is we do this, and I feel that would be a great solution to this. And I just think, let's think to ourselves, how different would we actually view our day-to-day life if we adopted that mindset from the get-go? If when I was going to the office, I just think to myself, I'm like, okay, yes, I'm packed as a sardine, but given the Canadian economy, I'm glad I have work to go to, knock on wood, right? Or if I'm waiting for the elevator, I'm waiting for the elevator in downtown Toronto. Like, I love the vibe, I love the ethos, I love the atmosphere, where the energy of being in downtown Toronto and like working for the incredible work that I do. So imagine how different our life would be. And so that is and I'm still, I feel like I'm still like trying to adopt this mindset, but just trying to be solution oriented even when it comes to religion. And I think if we adopt this mindset, of course, we need to allow ourselves to feel the frustration, to feel the emotions that come with it, because ultimately we are human. But at the end of that, we should try to be solution oriented. This one quote from this saint, from this monk, Radhanath Swami, comes to mind, and it's a very deep and heavy quote. He says, "If you're not part of the solution, even if you're a bystander, if you're not part of the solution, then we're part of the problem." Right? So I hope that answers your question, that how can we still
No,
stay.
that was great. I'm actually gonna experiment with what you suggested. Like, when every time it's too cold, let me adjust the thermostat. It's too whatever,
Yeah, just
whatever it may be, I'm gonna experiment with. I appreciate your reflection. Thank you.
yeah, no worries. But yeah, I think unless anyone has any last thoughts or questions, Wengel, you were on here for some time. Any reflections or thoughts or questions you'd like to share?
Sorry, hi everyone. Sorry, I've been quiet. Yeah, just not really in a headspace to reflect today, but I've enjoyed listening to everyone. I think the battle between spirituality and religion is something that I've, constantly battled with. I just try to find, what I like in both and apply that. So, I am Christian Orthodox. There are
Oh,
parts I don't like about that. So, but then I still go to church.
solution
And
oriented. I love this.
so I just try to take the best of both worlds and apply, you know, look for answers, I guess, where I can find them. Part of that is being a part of this group. So
Yeah.
that's my approach.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. I think I love hearing about these reflections, because it just like, what you just said, the way you are like, I just take positives from both sides. That's just like, it's such a simple way, again, to be able to stay inspired despite what's going on, right? It's such a simple sort of practice that we can just that we can take on. So thank you so much, Wendell, for sharing that and for tuning in today. But yeah, I think that's time for this week. I hope I was able to share something that was of value and uh, possibly something that you could reflect on. I really enjoyed listening to everyone's reflection. And I really did love this discussion, because I didn't feel like I was the only one talking. I was also learning and learning from you all too. So thank you all so much today for tuning in. I hope we can do this more often, where we can have more of a discussion on these topics. So yeah, great. Thanks everyone. Take
Absolutely.
care.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Bye. See you
Hare
next week.
Krishna, thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, guys.
Bye.